In section 16.4, we're going to talk about using measures of variability to make comparisons and inferences. So we're going to take a look at this set of data for athletes in Group A and Group B. It says the data show a random sampling of heights in inches of female athletes in two different Olympic sports. What inferences can you make about the sport each group plays? So let's take a look at some mathematical statistics here. The first thing I'd like for you to do is find the range of athletes in Group A and athletes in Group B, and then I would like for you to find the mean height in each of those groups. Please pause the video now, grab your calculators, and figure out both the range and the mean for each set of data. Okay, so you should compare your answers to mine. So the athletes in Group A, their ranges were 10 inches, and the mean was 58.125 inches. The athletes in Group B, the range was 6 inches, so that means they're all closer to the same height, and the mean height was 71.875 inches. So if you compare the two groups, what inference can you make about the sport that each group plays? Keep in mind that these are female athletes in two different Olympic sports. So I'm going to say that since the athletes in Group A are about 13.75 inches shorter than the athletes in Group B, I'm going to say that Group B probably plays either basketball or volleyball, sports that are typically have taller players. So that's my reasoning. Now I'm going to put it into sentence form. So please pause the video so that you can get those sentences written down, or that sentence written down. If you want to put it in your own words, you are absolutely welcome to do that. Moving on, you can compare two data sets by comparing their individual data values, but a quicker way would be to make a general comparison of the spreads of two data sets using their measures of variability. So if you take a look at the number of doodles on last night's homework from two different classes, the classes have the same number of students and the same number of doodles most common. So remember that the most common number is called the mode. It has nothing to do with the middle number. So then we're going to take a look at the ranges. So class M has a range of 3 and class R has a range of 5. So you can see that in class R there's a bigger range of numbers of doodles. So some students only do 1 doodle and another student did 6 doodles on his or her homework last night. So let's review measures of variability that we have already studied in this topic. They are the range and the interquartile range. The mean absolute deviation will be in the notes in the next section. That's another measure of variability that is a lot more extensive to find compared to the range and the interquartile range. So we're just going to review how to find the range. The range is the max minus the min. And to find the interquartile range, we're going to do Q3, which is the third quartile, minus Q1, which is the first quartile. And again, I'll explain how to do the mean absolute deviation in the next section. Let's move on to the next page. It says a psychologist is studying how spending time outdoors affects people's moods. He surveys 2 samples of people chosen at random. What is the range of mood levels for each sample? Make a comparative inference about the populations based on the range. So we're going to make an inference, but we have to base it on the range. So if you find the range of the outdoor group, the biggest number is possibly 10, because it's anywhere from 9 to 10 in this bar here. So this bar is from 9 to 10. And then the least number of people who could have said something is 0, because we have a bar from 0 to 1. So the range is 10 minus 0, which is 10. So the mood level changes from 0 to 10 in the outdoor group. If you compare that to the indoor group, we have a range from 8 being the biggest and 0 being the smallest. So the range is 8 minus 0, which is 8. So now we're going to make a comparative inference. Inference is a guess based on data. So I'm going to say that the moods of people who spend time outdoors varies more than the people who spend time indoors. Again, we are making a comparative inference using that range. So if the range is bigger, that means there's more variability. Variability is how much something changes. So again, the moods of people who spend time outdoors varies more than moods of people who spend time indoors. If you need to, pause your video to get that down, and then I'm going to move on. So down here it says a researcher is studying the effects of owning a cell phone on the number of hours people sleep. What's the range of hours slept for each group? Make a comparative inference about the populations based on range. Again, make sure that you realize that the question is asking you to make an inference based on the range. So if you take a look at the cell phone group here, we have a range from the biggest being 8 to the smallest being 4. So the range is 8 minus 4, so that would be 4 hours. If you take a look at the other set of data, people who don't have cell phones, the range is 10 minus 4. So the range is 6 hours, and we're talking about hours of sleep. So we can say that there is a wider range of sleep times for people who do not own cell phones compared to those who do own cell phones. So pause the video there to get that sentence written down. I'm going to move on to the next page. On this page, a psychologist is studying how spending time outdoors affects people's moods, so it's the same as a couple problems ago. He surveys 2 samples of people chosen at random. What is the IQR of mood levels for each sample? Make a comparative inference about populations based on IQR. So when the box plots are given, it makes the comparative, or the IQR, much easier to find. Remember, this number here is Q1, this number is Q3. Just a review, this is the median in between them, this is the min, and this is the max. So the IQR for this one is 8 minus 6, which is 2. And if we compare that to the indoor group, the IQR for the indoor group is 6 minus 2, which is 4. Now, I want you to realize what a quartile is. A quartile breaks it up into quarters. So, if you take a look at the box plot, that means 25% of your data is from here to here, the min to Q1. And then 25% of your data, I'm going to squeeze it in there, is between Q1 and the median. 25% of your data is between the median and Q3. And 25% of your data is between Q3 and the max. So that's why they're called quartiles. And when we talk about the IQR, the interquartile range, we're talking about the middle 50% of people. So here's 25%, 25%, 25%, and 25%. So the box in a box plot is the middle 50% of your data. So I'm going to use that to answer the question. My comparative inference is that the middle 50% of people who spend time outdoors have less mood variability than the middle 50% of those who spend time indoors. So here's my outdoor group. We have a variability of 4, and here we have a variability of 2. So my inference is that the middle 50% of people who spend time outdoors, which is the IQR of 2, have less mood variability than the middle 50% of those who spend time indoors. So why don't you pause the video to get that done? I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next problem. A researcher is studying the effects of owning a cell phone on the number of hours people sleep, so this corresponds to the 2 problems ago. What is the IQR of hours slept for each group? Make a comparative inference about the populations based on IQR. So in the cell phone group, we have these numbers here. So I'm going to say that's that's about 7.25 minus 5. So the IQR, 7.25 minus 5 is 2.25. And the IQR for the no cell phones is about 8 minus 6.75. So that's 1.25. And we're talking about hours slept. So I would say that there's a wider IQR of sleep hours with people who own cell phones than with people who don't own cell phones. So please pause the video so that you can get that done. I am going to move on. In this example down here, a psychologist is studying how spending time outdoors affects people's mood by surveying 2 groups of people chosen at random. Using the data, what might the psychologist conclude about the populations? So, if you take a look at the box plots, you can see that in general, people who spend time outdoors are happier than people who spend time indoors. If you take a look at the median, which is here compared to here, it's about 3 levels higher in the outdoor group. The IQR, the range here, is smaller than the range here. So since the IQR is smaller, that means that the moods vary less in the outdoor group. So in general, the outdoor group is happier and there's less variability. And the IQR is smaller, so the moods vary less in the outdoor group. Alright, let's take a look at the next page. This is the close and check, but I want you to cross off number 3. You do not need to do number 3. You need to do numbers 1, 2, and 4. And you're going to put those answers into a Google form. So once you have written down your answers on paper, you're going to go to bit.ly/16-4am. So it's section 16.4, and this is accelerated math. Please complete that and then move on to the next section.